Our guest today on the Motivation Show is an award-winning author of many books and has one of the most recognizable last names in the world. She is an actual friend of mine, and though I love all of my guests, rarely can I call them a personal friend. This lady has a heart of gold, and she makes a huge difference in the world, which is why she resonates with me. She has written hundreds of articles for the Association of Foreign Press Correspondents, Psychology Today, and our own newsletters, which I read actually. And they often are chronicling her experiences of her trips to Ukraine. As a war correspondent, she has visited Ukraine 5 times as the guest of the Kyiv Region Police. And several of her articles, this is amazing here, have been written while sheltering in bomb shelters in cities under active attack. Woo! Welcome to the Motivation Show, Mitzi Perdue.
Well, I love the idea that we're friends. And so this is more than just an interview. This is friends talking about what we care about. I love it.
Well, this is true. And you and I have had, I think, some good chemistry from day one. I think we often think alike, and that's a little bit scary. And so, a lot of your passion projects actually are fascinating and interesting to me. And so, the first thing I think about when I think about you is why at such a tender young age do you schlep to Ukraine and even put your life on the line?
Yeah, what's a nice girl like me doing in there? But I'll give you an answer. I am a journalist. I have been since 1980. Woohoo! And I love what I do. And well, I'll tell you how Ukraine came about, because it was not a plan. I had written a story for Psychology Today, and it was on how human traffickers congregate in conflict areas because they can find so many displaced women who they can lure into, trap into sex trafficking. Well, so I wrote about that for Psychology Today, and I wrote it at a somewhat significant time. It was published in July of 2022. Well, that's within a few months of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. And again, I didn't plan this, but thank heaven it happened. The article had the word Ukraine in it, and it also had the word human trafficking in it. Well, the head of the Kyiv Region Police had happened to have written his master's thesis to become a good policeman on human trafficking. So the subject interested him. And somehow he tracked me down in Dublin, New Hampshire, visiting my sister. And I get this call from Kyiv saying that he liked my article. Woohoo, we love that. But then he said, why don't you come to Ukraine and you can see for yourself and I'll show you more about the topic. Well, 10 days later, I'm in Ukraine. And this is 1922. And my first night there, Kyiv was attacked.
1922?
I'm trying to say 2022. Anyway, 2022. And I was so impressed by what I saw, including the absolute courage of the Ukrainian people, that I began, it started with writing about human trafficking, which is a huge issue. There are estimates that nobody knows for sure, but that like hundreds of thousands of women have been trafficked.
That's crazy.
You cross the border, you don't speak the language, maybe you don't know anybody, and how do you eat? But then there's this nice, kindly person there who says, oh, you look like you could use a warm meal. You look like you could find a place to spend the night, clean up. But get in the van because we're leaving in like 3 minutes. Well, she doesn't have time to think. And she's just, at her wit's end anyway, because between grief and trauma and everything else, she gets in the van, and I'm not sure I can even describe in polite company what happens to her, but I'll go do it anyway. She's perfectly likely to be raped 10 times that night. And they do it very deliberately just to discourage her so much. And they're all the time telling her that she's worthless. And, pretty soon, she no longer has the spiritual strength to fight back, and she becomes a trafficking victim. And I've heard estimates from the Ukrainian police. Well, this was back, 4 years ago, so maybe it's not true today, but that 1 woman in 100 will be rescued.
Oh my God.
So the police
1%.
are, yeah, well, so the police are very, very up and doing everything they can to prevent the girls to get from being, and in some cases boys, from being trafficked to begin with. And so I wrote lots about that, but then I began learning more about what the police do. And well, one of the things that influenced my career a whole lot is they document war crimes. And as of right now, they have way more than 100,000 documented war crimes. You know, somebody has a war crime and a police person will go and document it so that it can be taken to court. And so I know an awful lot of real human interest stories. But my biggest interest in Ukraine, and if I should stop monologuing, tell me.
All right, keep going. This is a one-of-a-kind story here.
Okay, well, the biggest thing that I'm involved with right now, and it's certainly Ukraine, but as somebody who interviews and writes about war crimes victims, and my experience is that the ones I've interviewed, you know, they've come to me. They know that I'm in a police station in Bucha or Irpin or wherever, and they come to the police station to tell me their stories. So, you know, these are people who want their stories told. But one was a 14-year-old girl, orphaned, and I have her in the interview room for half an hour, and there's an interpreter there. And she tells me this story about how she witnessed both parents be machine gunned down and bleed out. I mean, can you imagine, does anything more traumatic exist? Well, she's telling me, and I'm getting fond of her, by the way. She looks a little bit like my granddaughter, who's the same age. And so, you know, I'm feeling protective towards this woman. And I can't help noticing, as somebody who writes for Psychology Today, that she's speaking in a complete monotone like this, no ups or downs. And she's describing what happened to her as if it happened to somebody else. And psychologically speaking, that's dissociating. That's where she tries to separate in her mind what happened to her from herself. And the outcome for somebody who's had that much trauma, the prognosis is that she's just highly likely to self-medicate with drugs or alcohol. And then she has a whole new problem on top of the existing trauma. And so after she's left, and I told you I'm feeling fond of this girl. I mean, I want to put my arms around her and hug her, which was not appropriate. I didn't, but that's how I was feeling towards her. I asked the police translator, is she going to get counseling? And I learned, and I've studied more about it since, that her chances of getting any kind of counseling were effectively zero. In the United States, we have one mental health professional per 500 people. I mean, it's going to vary by city or country, but roughly. In Ukraine, the same figures isn't 1 to 500, it's 1 to 100,000.
Wow.
In other words, there are 100,000 people per one therapist. So I learned, this happened 2 years ago, but in the time since, I've learned that like today, as many as 95% of the people in Ukraine have like insomnia or depression or anxiety or panic attacks, and they don't have mental health professionals to help them.
Yeah, no coping mechanisms, unfortunately, sadly. Yeah, that's a rough one.
I mean, it's terrible. And I know some of this firsthand, having spoken to survivors of war crimes. And, you know, I think we take it for granted that you have a mental health issue, that somebody's going to help you. In war-torn Ukraine, I mean, there are some, but there's surely nowhere near enough to meet the need. So I started thinking, since I have a bit of a background in computer science, I don't have, well, I wrote my master's thesis on the future of computers, so I have an awareness of it. And I started thinking, anything almost would be better than nothing. And what if something like ChatGPT, where you can type in, you know, here's my problem, what should I do about it? What if you could have something like ChatGPT or Grok or any of the other of these artificial intelligences, what if you could train them very specifically on Ukrainian mental health approaches? What if they could be trained by Ukrainian mental health experts? And that was a year ago today. The whole program, it's, if you have, let's say you've got anxiety in the middle of the night, you can take out your cell phone, and I'm pretending that this hand is my cell phone screen. I can either speak into it or type into it, and I can get some awfully good advice. But I've got to back up. That's what we're testing right now. It's not available to everybody yet. But the reviews we're getting so far are spectacular. And we're working with the Ministry of Defense, with the Ministry of Veterans Affairs. There are about 5 different governmental institutions that are working with us on this. Yeah?
Well, I'm kind of curious why there isn't more outrage about this. Why isn't more of the mainstream media writing about it? Why isn't the UN raising holy hell about it? What do you think?
Well, I surely think they should, but I had an inkling. I don't know how I'm giving you the final answer, but I'll tell you how it appears to me. Whenever I go there, I'm the guest of the Ukrainian police. I mean, that's my beat right now. That's what I report on. And I don't know if this is true today, but like half a year ago it was so. There was almost nobody who was covering police. If you're a correspondent and you're in Ukraine, you're probably covering something like the front lines or military equipment, or so the number of correspondents who are writing about things on my beat, which is war crimes, isn't large. So, some people ask me, why do you keep coming back? And I'm thinking, somebody's got to tell this story.
Yeah.
And well, I have so many reasons to keep coming back, but when I talk with people, usually war crimes victims, I hope this isn't my imagination, but I feel that it's either therapeutic or almost spiritually healing to talk with somebody who's not judgmental and wants to tell their story. That's how it feels to me. I may be wrong on this, but I think I feel like a doctor feels who can, like, set a bone or something and the person's better. Now, I'm not going to make anybody better, but I can make them a little better. And then with this program, the feedback I've been getting is that it's shockingly effective. I'll give you an example, or should I stop monologuing and invite you to ask me?
No. Well, we're go give us that example. It's
Good.
fascinating.
Right, I wanted to. Okay, here's a woman who she had been raped numerous times by the Russian soldiers, and I'm shortening her story, but she managed to escape to the West and freedom. She'd been assigned to dig ditches, by the way, and she was a mid-level bureaucrat. I mean, she's in her 50s, and can you imagine digging ditches? And then whenever your guard wants sex, he says, you come here, or he'll put a bullet in your head. I mean, talk about trauma.
This is like the Holocaust all over again here.
I think so. Anyway, her problem was she still works, but she'd have panic attacks 4 or 5 times a day. And she didn't know where this was coming from or what it was about, and it was hard to talk with anybody about it. But with a chat GPT kind of utter non-judgmental stuff, she learned what she said was most important to her was that she wasn't crazy. This is something, there are millions of people who have panic attacks. It wasn't just her. So first, to know that she wasn't alone, that was very reassuring. And then they gave her some really concrete things you can do, like if you're having a panic attack, and I've never had one, but from what she tells me and what I've heard elsewhere, at their worst, you think you're going to die. You're sure you're going to die. And you have this feeling of doom and it's going to last forever. She learned through this program that panic attacks, people don't die of them. They just don't. They feel like you're going to, but you don't. And they're limited. Like a typical excuse me, a typical one might be 5 minutes. A bad one might be 10 minutes. An end of the world, almost nobody would have this, could be 20 minutes. But the advice she was given was, as you're going through this and you think the world's going to end and you feel just as bad as a human being can be, hold in mind that it's not going to last forever. Every minute goes by, comes closer to the end of it, and you're not going to die. Well, they gave her a whole lot of, really helpful advice. And my impression so far is that this program of helping people with artificial intelligence is not going to cure anybody, but it's going to give them information that makes it easier to bear it. And boy, something's better than nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a lot to bear. I can tell you that. You have to live it, I guess. You could not even fathom what somebody's going through. It's insane. One of the things that trouble me and the things that I've read about is the trafficking of young kids and taking them and they never know who their parents are again, and the parents never find them. What has your experience with that?
Okay, there are kind of two big issues. One is kids who are taken by the global cartels and just taken off to some other country, and they're probably their life expectancy is 7 years, and when they die, their organs will be sold. That's one thing that happens to children. But in Russia, there's something different. Now, I'm going to give some statistics that are argued. By some statistics, there are 40,000 Ukrainian children who've been taken to Russia, their papers burned, they're told that their parents hated them and turned them over, which is a lie.
By the way, to me, that I don't even know if there's a term. To me, it's beyond a war crime. I mean, war crime's pretty bad, but I don't even know if you can come up with a term for that kind of evil.
Let me tell you just how evil it is. I was talking to a parent who, I was thinking this is the worst thing possible that could happen to a parent, to have your child taken away and to another country and brought up as a Russian and calling somebody else mother. But there's one thing, if you can handle this, there's one thing worse. They are trained to be soldiers and they come back, some of them were taken in 2014. They come back as soldiers killing Ukrainians. And this mother said, in her mind, there's nothing worse than this child that you loved and you expected would be protecting you is coming back and trying to kill you. I mean, the evil of it is just unfathomable.
Yeah, I actually got into a discussion with this with a couple of people, and I don't know where they got their information from, but somehow, the blame the victim sort of mentality, to kind of, it's like, well, Ukraine really did some things to egg it on, and like, how do you egg on stealing kids, and come on.
Well, Eli, you've pressed another button, and I'm going to start talking again. I'm talking and I can't stop. I hope we're friends and I can joke like this. But seriously, why do people believe some things that we have reason to doubt? And this is another thing I write about a lot, because it's the Ukrainian police who monitor the disinformation coming out of the Kremlin and St. Petersburg. And I've talked with people in the police who tell me that they hear, they monitor what's coming out of it's called a troll farm in St. Petersburg. They monitor what's coming out of it, and then they see 5 days later people in the United States are repeating it. And I'll tell you some of the hoaxes, they're just absolutely false. There's one going around right now, which is that Zelensky's approval rating is 4%. That's nonsense. But the Russians put it out, and they use artificial intelligence to have like millions of posts going everywhere saying, and if you're, let's say ChatGPT or any of the ones that you use, if they want to fact check, does Zelensky only have 4% approval? they might get it wrong because the Russians have just flooded the space with misinformation, and the way that the chat has to figure out what's true or not. They sort of look at what the whole internet is saying and take that for truth. It's not, because
Oh, I buy those stats as much as I buy the stats coming out of North Korea and China.
well, and you're so right. But what about other ones? Like, here's one that somebody whom I would, under most circumstances, regard as feet on the ground realistic. She's a born again Christian, and she absolutely believes, and I can't talk her out of the notion, that that Zelensky has closed the churches in Ukraine. And I've been in my trips, I've been in at least 20, 25 churches, and they're thriving, and they're moving, and they're crowded, and they're vibrant. And the idea that he's closed them, no, he has not closed all the churches. He has closed a few, which are Russian Orthodox churches that are loyal to Moscow and that are like spy centers. But for any legitimate church, no. The regime particularly encourages all churches, whether they're Baptist or Catholic or Sikh or Orthodox or whatever, they're there and they're flourishing. But I can't talk her out of it because, she got the information, and once you get an idea in your head, it's part of your identity, and it's there's first mover advantage. If I get there with the lie first, it's hard to talk you out of it because you believe it.
Well, I know you're not the president, and
I wish I were.
I know that you don't have a crystal ball, but if you were president, you did have a crystal ball. How do you think this all ends? How does this war stop?
Okay, I do have a theory which nobody else seems to share, but I think Russia is far weaker than we think, and I'll give you some examples. Russia's economy depends on oil. I have been to the drone factories, so that I've got the Ukrainian drone factory, so I have some knowledge of what I'm speaking about. We have taken offline like a minimum of 20% of their refineries, and by some estimates 40%. And there are areas of Russia right now where there's gas rationing, where you can spend so much time with your car to get, it might be 8 hours that you've used up all the gas that you would have gotten from the filling station. I just think that, and like prices of food, I've been told that potatoes have gone up like 4 times. So you're getting paid less, and inflation is eating up. No, I don't know at what point there will be a breaking point, but there's so many things that make them vulnerable. Or a quick one, I invite all our listeners to just to flag this notion. Iran is now in its 6th year of drought, with the result that a whole lot of the reservoirs are at 10%. You look at an aerial photo, and this once great big reservoir is just a little trickle. And those are the things that run a lot of the hydroelectric dams. They're not working, which means a whole lot of the drone factories that Russia was using, that Ukraine was using, I'm trying to say that Iran was using to provide drones for Russia, they're not happening now. I think, there are just so many things that I think, there's going to be somewhere a straw that breaks Russia's back.
Well, sometimes when you have certain leadership, you don't always look at things as they are. You look at things through your ego and through what you want, and you sometimes don't stop. You don't even care what happens to your own people. Seems, from my vantage point, there's a whole lot of people in Russian soldiers getting killed, and that doesn't seem to stop the madness. So
not a bit. It's incomprehensible what a psycho case Putin must be. No, I'm sure that he's very rational, kind of in certain areas. But when you look at the big picture, being willing to sacrifice, there's at least 1 million Russians who've either been killed or badly disabled. And as far as anybody can tell, that doesn't seem to keep him awake at night. Or at least the moral aspect of it doesn't. I cannot fathom such evil.
Yeah. And question is, where does it go from here? I mean, the
Well,
president.
okay, then I have another theory, which I don't think anybody else shares, but here, if this happens, we heard it here in your show. Russia and China, for centuries, have been enemies. I've been in the border between China and Russia. Am I trying to say that? Yeah. And I don't think there's a whole lot of love lost between them. Like everybody talks about Taiwan, but I don't think China's as interested in Taiwan as it is in Vladivostok. And okay, can you handle a slightly tinfoil hat opinion?
I can handle almost anything.
Okay, here goes. I mean, maybe I'm right and maybe I'm wrong, but a super famous war theoretician from China, Sun Tzu, The Art of War,
Yep.
says, and I'm not sure I've got the translation quite right, but the idea is going to be right. You want that olive tree over there. You make everybody think you after that walnut tree over there. And so people are preparing to defend the walnut tree, and you make everything, war is the art of deception, it says in The Art of War. You have everybody thinking, ooh, the walnut tree. Well, you really want the walnut tree. You really want the olive tree. China has wanted Vladivostok since it was taken by Russia, I think 150 years ago. Not sure of the date, but within memory. It's a fantastically valuable piece of property. It's a good port. It's near transportation hubs, all sorts of minerals that the Chinese would like. I think that the Chinese are bit by bit going to nibble away at Russia while Russia isn't able to defend itself and is kind of dependent on China. And I think Russia, okay, prediction, I bet in 15 years, Vladivostok is Chinese and Russia can't do a thing about it. Now, why would China go after Vladivostok instead of Taiwan? I don't think they will go after Taiwan because Taiwan's had 70 years to defend it, to build up its defenses. If you go to war, you want to win, and China can't know that they'll win in Taiwan. On the other hand, if they take Vladivostok, that nobody's stopping them. Russia is occupied elsewhere.
Also, I would think that with Taiwan making all the semiconductors and all that, and maybe they may be more strategic to the rest of the world, and the rest of the world might be more reactionary if something happens with Taiwan, right? So
yeah, I mean, who cares about Vladivostok if you haven't heard of it?
Right, yeah.
On the other hand, our society runs on computer chips, so we really care about that.
Yeah, exactly. The thing is, it's all madness out there right now, and, we have a policy where we want to think about take care of our own home first, right? Which makes sense. Then you look at the criminality. I mean, again, I can't even come up with words. It will beyond war crime that's happening in the rest of the world. And you can't just sit back and just allow some rogue country to just slaughter an entire population, annihilate them, create another Holocaust, and then embolden them to think they can keep doing this. So where do that balance between taking care of home versus making sure the rest of the world doesn't implode, because eventually that's going to come back to us one way or the other. So, when people say take care of home, I get that. But also, you can't really just sit back and okay, that's not our problem. What are your thoughts?
Oh, I'm passionate about this. To me, the reason to get involved is deterrence. Because if you just let it happen, ooh, then there's going to be more of it.
That's my point. You know,
Yeah. And so, well, you've kindly allowed me to think about being president. Ooh. No, but wait,
you'd make a good one. I'll tell you that. I'd vote.
Thank you. Yes,
First female president. I'm in for it.
Oh, great. Oh, and I want your vote. I mean, everybody listening, I want your vote. Not so sure about that. But to continue, if I were president, I would exploit Russia's weakness for all I'm worth, because they're in economic trouble. They have 193 minorities where they tend to hate each other, and they particularly hate the Kremlin. Because, okay, here's a statistic to chew on. If you're in one of the ethnic minorities, you're not in Russia, you're not in St. Petersburg, and you have a son, and that son is drafted, or sent to the front in one way or another. I don't think they have the draft, but your son ends up in the front. He is 40 times more likely to be killed than if that boy is from Moscow or St. Petersburg. Now, can you imagine the rage that people in the minorities feel? I mean, it's just breathtaking. I think it's a complete powder keg. And do you remember how the former Soviet Union just seemed to dissolve just like almost overnight? It just fell apart.
I'm still trying to figure out how that happened so quickly and easily.
I can't give you a date of when I think this would happen, but I think they're amazingly fragile. So, since you've have you appointed me president? Yes.
Absolutely,
okay,
and
right.
I might vie to be in your cabinet.
Okay, as president, I would be violently more tough. I think Putin responds to power. I don't think he responds.
That's what I like about you. You don't look it, but boy, don't mess with Mitzi.
I always like the image of I'm a nice guy, but don't cross me.
Exactly.
Okay, well, as a nice president, but don't cross me. Mr. Putin, you've crossed me. You, off my island. I mean, I would, one of the first things I'd do is everything possible to cut off his oil supply. And I think I'd give the Ukrainians every possible missile that would disrupt pipelines and refineries, or maybe even I'd go after the wellheads. But if he can't pay his troops, if he can't buy ammunition, if he can't feed people, and all of those take money, he's out.
Well, that would be common sense. You would think that all would have been done from day one, like and no, compromise on that. Like either you stop the war or you're just not getting anything. There's no wishy-washy. So that would have been my vote.
Okay. Again, that's why they need me for president.
Right. I mean, well, what's with the wishy-washy stuff? Like, on and off and on and off. Like, and we'll do it in 6 months. Like, no, you do it right now, and you play hardball.
Hardball, yeah.
I'd be a good Secretary of War.
But the reason I'd be as harsh and tough as I can is because I think you'd save so many lives by not dragging it out.
Thank you. That's
okay,
the goal.
And actually this idea doesn't really come just from me. It comes from Ukrainian friends who just don't understand why we've been so slow with the munitions. I mean, 4 years. Their view is
that's been bothering me. Yeah, it's like just do it, or you're gonna do it, just do it, and do it now, and don't wait, because what are you gonna wait until another the 300,000 soldiers get slaughtered? Like, what's the waiting? I mean,
well, you could fit in Ukraine very well, because you can hear a lot of people saying that.
Common sense.
I think so. Oh well.
Yeah. Well, anyhow, we're getting to the end of the program. Anything else that you want to add? Because we can probably go on all night, like with your stories,
Oh, I love it. Well, I have a pitch that's a non-pitch. I'm not going to ask anybody for money, but keep an eye as the year rolls on, as next year rolls on, for mental health global, because what we're doing right now in the mental health effort, other countries have already been asking for it, like Iraq has been asking it. Kurdistan wants to copy it. And, if it really works, as I'm hoping, or as it seems to be working, it may spread to other underserved communities where you're a psychiatrist, you have 200 patients, they need you all the time and you can't get to them all the time. What if you could have a program where they could be getting really good advice and you could supervise the advice, but they could contact this program at 2 in the morning when the person really needs it, rather than like once a week or once every 2 weeks. Anyway, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. I invite people to keep an eye out for Mental Health Global and see if it spreads as I wish it would.
Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. For those that don't know Mitzi as well as I do, she was the wife of the late, great Frank Perdue. And for those that want to stay in touch with Mitzi, I think they can simply go on your website, right? MitziPerdue.com.
Yeah, and I'd love that.
Absolutely. And they can sign up for your newsletter on there as well.
Oh, I'd adore it if they'd do that. Yes, please.
Well, absolutely. Because like I said, I've been reading your newsletter and it's filled with information, education that fortunately you're not going to get from a lot of the mainstream news. So thank you so much, Mitzi.
Thank you so much. It was just so great seeing you.
My pleasure. Thank you.